Okay, so let's talk about a couple of final steps that you take in Pro Tools when you're finished mixing. So one is you may want to archive, and that your best friend there is the save copy in command. And then also we want to talk about bouncing to disk. So that's creating a stereo mix from your session. So off we go. Say we've done all our mixing, we're super happy with how everything's sounding, or at least happy enough, and we're going to send this off to get mastered, or maybe just send it off so somebody can listen to it and give you notes. So a couple of things that you want to do. One is if you have to give this session to someone else or just make an archive or a backup of it, your friend, your best friend, is save copy in. You might be tempted to go file save as. All that save as does is get you a copy of your session file. None of the other media will be connected to it. But save copy in will neatly package up everything you need, all the media for your session, into one nice package that you can give to someone else. So not only that, but it does a couple other cool things too. So first of all, you can change format. So say you have a current version of Pro Tools that doesn't run on someone else's computer, you can package your current session into an older version of Pro Tools for them. So you can go back from between version 7 and 9, you can go back to 5.1 to 6.9 as well. So you can give someone an old version that they'll be able to open without any trouble. You can also change the sample rate and change the bit depth. You can change whether the files are interleaved in the audio files folder as well. So really, really good, useful things. So also you pretty much want to always, if you're going to make a backup or give this full folder to someone else, you do pretty much always want audio files included. And if there's any video in there, make sure that one's clicked as well. So some of the other things are less important, but the audio files and the movie or video files is really important. Otherwise, they're going to get your session file and then they're going to be missing a whole lot of audio. So again, save copy in is really great for making a backup. So some other cool things that it's useful for is, say that I want to stop my session one day and we've mixed for a while or we've recorded for a while and we just want a copy of that where it's at, but then we want to keep and experiment a little bit more for another hour or two. So you can use save copy in to get yourself a copy, a backup copy of whatever moment we're in, and without any worries about anything you're going to do later. And then what it'll do is create a full session backup for you, but it won't open up a new session. So you'll still be working in the current session. You'll have just made a snapshot of everything that matters in that session at that moment, but then you'll have kept working in your regular session. So it won't have opened the copy for you to work in. It just leaves the current working version of your session and just makes a copy and stores it somewhere for you, wherever you choose to. So it's great for creating different versions of the same project at different moments in your process. The other thing you can do is create a copy. If you're signed into your Avid account, you can also switch from a cloud-based version to a regular local version of a session, or the other way around, turn a regular local session into a cloud-based project, which you can't see right now because I'm not signed in. Cool, so that's kind of it for save copy in. Okay, mixing down. So we're all done. We're ready to finally print this final version of our tune. So a couple things you should know. The most common one to use is file and then bounce mix. So that used to be called bounce to disk. Now it's called bounce mix. So depending on your version of Pro Tools, it might say something else. And you click that and you'll get a dialog that asks you some different questions. So this is the most common way to create a stereo file from whatever's going on in your session as a kind of a final mix. So you have choices like file name, file type. You can choose where the mix source is coming from. So usually that's your physical output, your monitors. And then you can choose some important things like interleaved. You want interleaved most of the time. If you want a single stereo file, you need to choose interleaved, and that will give you a single stereo output file. You can also choose multiple mono. That will make separate mono files. So you'll have two files, one for the left side and one for the right side if you do it that way. And then you can have mono summed, which will make a single mono file with the left and right basically combined, flattened out into mono, which typically you don't want either. Also, you can choose the bit depth. For CD quality, you should choose 16-bit. That's the standard. For sample rate, typically CD quality is 44:1, DVDs, things with video, tend to be 48. There are lots of choices, but basically if you're doing something that's going to be used on regular kind of standard devices, the typical thing to do is 16-bit and then 44:1 for CD quality or 48 for film type applications. Also, you can choose a couple of other things that we won't worry about. You choose where it goes. Another important one is this little guy at the bottom left here, offline. So if you choose offline bounce, it will just create the file as fast as it can. And depending on what kind of things you have going on in the session, it might take different amounts of time, but it'll be faster than real-time processing of your finalized stereo file. If you choose to not do it offline, that means you will need to listen in real time to everything that you're bouncing. So your entire session will play back in real time as it bounces, and it will count down the seconds until it's done. A couple other really important things about when it's time to bounce. So one is, if you don't have a timeline selection, you will get the longest thing, the longest track. It will bounce everything from the start to the longest track you have in your session bounced. And sometimes that also means markers and things, I believe, or any automation that's on one of these tracks. So if you have a tiny bit of information, 15, 20, 30 minutes down the line, it's going to bounce all of that, and you're going to end up with a very long stereo track. So it's much better to make a timeline selection of exactly what you want to hear. So make your selection, choose exactly how far it should go. And typically, another good rule of thumb is often the end is not the end of these clips that you're going to hear, because if there's reverb or something that's still going, often the reverb is still processing farther out into space than the last things that you see on your clip. So it's always good to have a couple of seconds past where any of your reverb tails might be going. And then you choose your start point, make sure there's no sounds. Now my entire session will bounce from here to here. Another thing you should know, anything that is soloed or muted will be exactly what you hear. So if you don't hear it when you play it back, so if you have this guitar track soloed, that's all that you're going to get in your bounce. So most likely you don't want that. You want everything going. So make sure anything that's muted is muted on purpose, and anything that's soloed is also soloed on purpose. So anything you hear is what's going to be played back. It's also going to render any of these plugins that you have and any of your sends that you have. Those are all going to render into the mix as it plays back and bounces. Okay, so that's kind of it for making backups and printing a final stereo mix. Hopefully that gives you a good sense of how to create a finished product, and I'll see you in the next one for some new techniques and new skills. All right.